Hello and welcome everyone to this noon learning session about Google Sheets. I'm so glad that you could join us here today. Hello to everyone that's joining live and hello to everyone that's watching this on the recording today. Let's go ahead and get started about Google Sheets in our noon learning series. I will preface this before we get started that Google Sheets and spreadsheets and anything like this, Excel you can mix in there, Numbers is the Apple product also. I will admit to you that this is a little bit of my kryptonite, and it's probably one of the suite of the tools that I probably use the least. But that has been changing over the years. I have found myself that every time someone asks a question about something Google, they're going to say, hey, how do you do this in Sheets? And I'd be like, oh no, a question in Sheets. So through my training to become a certified trainer for Google, I really needed to kind of up my game with Google Sheets. And I can tell you what, it has helped. And there's so many things that I've learned about using Google Sheets as transferred over if someone has an Excel or numbers question. And it's just made me more of a productive person in using a spreadsheet type tool. So whatever trepidation that you might have about a spreadsheet program, just know that, hey, I had the same trepidation as well, and it's all a learning experience. And of course, that's why you're here today. So Google Sheets actually got started way back in Google, like in 2006 was the first kind of beta test of Google Sheets. And it was called Google Spreadsheets back then. After a few iterations and the beta testers, it kind of came out for play in 2010, but it really hit its full stride in 2012 when Google acquired some other online Office type experiences to be able to roll it into what we know as Google Sheets now. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a brief overview of Sheets. So it'll be a little bit of what the screen looks like, what the buttons are, all that kind of stuff. Some things that you want to know about that I always get asked about. Working inside a cell, how to merge cells, doing conditional formatting. We'll do a sample of some formulas. I'll show you some things I do for sorting data. Sharing your spreadsheet so you can share it just for viewing and for other purposes as well. Another question people always ask me is how to print from Google Sheets. I can show you how to do that. We're also going to take a little side dive into Google Forms. I'm not really going to show you about forms. I'm just going to show you one that I created and then the data that I pulled from it. And what I'm going to really want to focus on like the last 10 minutes is showing you about Autocrat. If you've ever used Word and Excel and done something called a mail merge, Autocrat is your answer in the Google world. So I want to show you how powerful is gathering data, okay, but also being able to kind of what you would say spit back that data to people in other formats than just by looking at a spreadsheet. And then we'll have a little wrap up at the end. So let's get going. I'm going to go ahead and go into a spreadsheet here. You're going to see a little bit of data that I've put down here at the bottom. That's just so I had some data to start to pull from, just so I didn't have to type everything in here today. So let's just kind of take a quick glide around the screen and just so you know where things are at. Starting in the upper left-hand corner, of course, we have our icon for Sheets. Then we have our name of our spreadsheet here. If it's a starred document, what folder you want it in, and this ever important document status button letting you know that that has been synced to the cloud, because Google Sheets, like Docs and Slides, can actually work offline. So if all of a sudden you were working on Sheets and your internet went down, you can still continue to work on it, and when your internet comes back, then all that data will automatically sync to the cloud. So even on a Chromebook, if you're out in the middle of a cornfield somewhere and you need to open up a Google Sheet and don't even have internet, you're still able to look at it, even add to it, and then when you get back to where there is internet, it will sync back for you. So that's really a good thing to have there. We have our menu bar here. As I've said before in some of these other things, what you see in this menu bar is probably duplicated somewhere on this formatting toolbar. Just because it's always on a computer, there's about 3 ways to do exactly the same thing. Sometimes people like to go to a menu and then choose it. Sometimes it's right here across the top. Some other times it's a keyboard shortcut. It's all a personal preference. I use a mix of both. I lean towards keyboard shortcut and everything I can see, and then if I need to pull in for other tools right here as well. Taking a little glide across to the right-hand side of the screen, you can have comment history. So not only can you share this so people can edit it or just view it, you can put them into what's called a comment mode. That way they can put comments on it, not only for you, but maybe some other collaborators you would have onto it, so that they can do tasks without messing up what the sheet looks like. Your sharing rules are in this green button here. These always used to be the same color, but now they're the same color as what the program is. So Sheets is green, but if you look on Docs, that button is blue. If you look on Slides, that button is yellow. If you're in Forms, it's actually hidden. It's not a button itself because it's just a couple different ways, but they actually always used to be the same color, but now they're the color. And then this just tells you what Google account that you're in. If we take a look at our toolbar across here, undo, redo, print, we have our paintbrush to duplicate some formatting. How you're viewing this, I can zoom in a little bit once we start working on this, so it's a little bit easier on the eyes. I mean, I can see everything here, but if I crank this up to 150%, ooh, that's a little bit easier on the eyes even more. So that's where you can change that. We also have how you can format your cells here. Again, that would be in this drop-down menu, just some quick formatting. Our font size, of course your bold, italic, strike through, color of the font. If you want to color in or fill a color of a cell, this is where you can do that, but I'll also show you something about conditional formatting and alternating colors. How you want to do the borders of your cells, that's kind of interesting. The justification of your cells, when you get some more data in there, this is where this pulls in. Now I just have short data in here, but in another sheet I'm going to show you where some of these tools come in really handy, because not only do you have your alignment, but you have your horizontal alignment, but your vertical alignment, so that you can put that in the middle of the cell. Your text, if you want it just to go out straight or wrap around, and you can even angle some of this. And of course, other tools like putting links in, inserting your comments, charts. I'm going to show you a little bit about charts as well. Now I have some data in here that we're going to go ahead and pull around and use, because I just want to make sure that you know that, there's all sorts of things you can do. One of the things is working inside of a cell, okay? Actually, wait. Sorry, one more thing before we close up. Let's go around to the bottom here. One last thing to look at. Of course, we have our columns and rows, but now across the bottom, if we want to add another sheet to this file, we can, so you can have multiple sheets across the bottom. And then, of course, you can always name your sheets and color your sheets, so you can have that tab as well. If I go across the bottom, I can rename this sheet. So we have that, because if you have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, you might forget what kind of data you have in here, but you can always add another one and then rename it, okay? So it's easy to see what kind of data might be in there. Not only can you rename it, but I like to do the colors so that it's kind of a highlight for you. So you can have that, and notice that now that's red across the bottom. We can also change the color here, maybe make this blue, just a little bit more easily attainable for some people. All right, so let's take a look at some data here. Now I have some data pulled here. I'm just going to go ahead and select it. One of the first things you're like, well, how did you just do that? Get all those selected without clicking and dragging. Well, that's a really good trick to know inside of anything, that especially if you click the first one in the series or the last one, whichever way you want to go, and then you hold the Shift key down on your keyboard and click in the first or the last, whichever way you're going, you can actually select all your data at one time. I'm just going to cut this data and just move it up to the top, just so that we're working towards the top. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see on the screen. Now inside these, each cell we have here, I just have some names, all right? One of the main questions I always get asked about is like, oh, I wish I had their first name separated from their last name, but I don't know how to do that. Oh, Google does that for you so easily. Let me show you how. If I have my data here, I'm going to go ahead and select it all again. And I'm going to go into Data, and I'm going to choose Split Text into Columns. Now, there's this little pop-up that came up. It says Separator, and it says Detect Automatically. And I'm going to have it go ahead and detect automatically because it's a space, but I could choose space. And look at that. It automatically split out the data from this column, from their first name to their last name. Oh my gosh, let me do that one more time. I'm going to undo it so my data comes back. And again, I have my data highlighted. Data. Sorry about that. Split text into columns, and it's by the space. So if you had a comma in there, that could be what it was, the detector, or any kind of thing else. If you had other things that you want to detect, it can actually split that data out. How amazing is that? That's a wonderful thing. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo that. When I'm looking at this data here, I might want to add some borders around these cells because I want to be able to have that grid show when it's printed as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select those cells again, and I'm going to go up to this icon here and choose borders. Now when you do this, you're going to notice all sorts of different types of ways that the borders can be. If you choose this first option, it's going to do all borders automatically. But say you only wanted to have the left border or the right border, you can do that. You can choose what color you want your borders to be, and you can choose what style of line you want your borders to be. So if you want something really thick, or if you want it to be a dotted line, you can do that as well. Or if you're doing some kind of data sheet where you need to have like totals and subtotals, you notice that you have this double line here so that you can even put that in there. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit thicker, and I'm going to choose our border to be pink and go ahead and wrap that right around. Now all our borders are pink around our cells. That is amazing. One other thing that people always ask me about is when they're working inside of a cell, and say I was typing along, okay? So I'm like, now when I did that, we're going to talk about our text wrapping here too. Notice how this kind of just goes straight out, and if I had data in these columns, it would cover it up, okay? Now if I want that data to wrap in there, what we're going to do is we're going to choose this icon right up over here, and we're going to drop down and choose the middle one to wrap it. Now all that data fits into that square without it bleeding, sorry, cell, not square, without it bleeding over. But another thing people ask me about is like, if I'm in here and I actually want to set a hard return in there, like the return carriage, and if I just hit return, well, I go to the next cell. Did you know that if you're on a PC and you hold down the control key, okay, if I'm holding down the control key on my keyboard and then I hit enter, I can add that return in there and I can have space. So it's not just hitting the enter key, it's hitting that holding the control key, command if you're on a Mac, and then hit enter, and then you can have extra returns in there. And now look at your cell, you're getting that space in there. Excellent, excellent thing. Now say you wanted to have your cells just to get some more space, all right? So I would like to have, instead of just having that one column, I want to merge my cells together. Let me just get this data out of the way. And I'm going to merge these cells together so that I have like a bigger cell all the way around. So I'm going to choose the cells that I want to merge together. So I have one, and then I choose where I want how my area to be. So maybe I want 3 cells down and 3 cells over. Holding the shift key, I select that. Then I'm going to go into my format menu, choose merge cells and merge all. Now I have one gigantic cell here that went over the top of these. See the difference of where that's at? And if I put that border around, notice that we just get that big pink border there. Now I can take this data and put it into that cell, and I can still change the wrap. I could put it towards the middle of the cell. I can change the formatting of it. So that's a good way to be able to kind of make some headers or to combine some cells together to give you some more space to put some text or anything like that. All right, I'm going to flip into some another sheet here just because I have some other data in here. Before I do that, I'm going to skip and I'm going to go to some formulas. I put some data down here at the bottom and say we needed to do some formulas on this data. Well, this is just pure number data. So I can go into this cell below all of this data right here, and I could just start to type in the names of the cells. And of course, we know that by the row and by the column, we can choose to do that. I'm going to type an equal sign, and I could say that I want B18 plus B19. And once I hit enter, that gives me, of course, a sum of B18 plus B19. But what if I want more than that? What if I want to add up all of B18 all the way through B26? Well, I'm going to enter a formula. So I have an equal sign, and it even shows me some suggestions here that I could have sum of B18 through B26. So B18 colon means through B26. And I put that in, and now that's going to add that up. Now, if I had other data in there, I could also copy that formula and put it someplace else. Notice I just have 1, 2, 3 over here as well. Now I'm going to hit Control C on my keyboard. You could also right click and hit copy, just up to you. And I'm actually going to paste this. Now you're thinking, well, that's not what I want. I don't want 398. I want that to be the total. You're actually just copying the formula, and it automatically detected that I was in column D, and it added up columns D12 through D20. Well, I didn't have anything D12, but it did start to come in D18, and there's my cell. Of course, you can do things like average as well. I could take this, and instead of having the sum of these, I can type in the word average, and now that gives me the average of all these numbers. There's so many formulas. I mean, we could probably spend a couple hours on just formulas, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a clue on that. One other thing that I see people always asking me about is that if they start to type the numbers, say they wanted to get some rows, that they wanted to have some rows, and I see people going 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're typing them in one by one. No, 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 no. Once you get a few typed in, you have to have a few, like 1 or 2, I even just do 3. I'm going to select the first one, shift click, and then I'm going to use my cursor and move over to this lower right hand handle here, and it becomes a plus sign or a crosshair. And when I drag down, that automatically numerates each one of those because you've started the series. It does the same way if you're going across as well. It also does the same thing if you go A, B, C, it will continue with D, E, F, G, H, I, and so on and so forth. All right. Now I'm going to shift a little bit because I want to show you one of the powerful things about getting some data in. I did a quick Google form and I just filled out the data myself. Now, like I said, Google Form's awesome. And you can see that I asked for data. First, last name, a zip code, a funny question, on a scale from 1 to 5, how do you rate the scale? Funny. Quick choices, Coke or Pepsi, favorite season, and then your favorite number. Now, inside of Forms, I can actually look at my data here and I can get some results. But what's even more powerful is that you can take that data and put it into a Google Sheet. Now we have all sorts of data here that I can be able to do those formulas on and other things as well. Now, one of the big things, remember we talked about that average? Well, let's see what our average is. So if we go into this cell right here, I'm going to go ahead and type that equal sign and average, And it automatically suggests to me that, oh, it's looking that I might want to average the data of E2 to E9. Yes, I do. And it is showing me that the average is a 3.71. Wonderful data. How about some things that we could even do more? If I take and highlight this data of Coke and Pepsi, and I go to the Insert menu, and I choose Chart, or I could just go to this icon right over here, same thing, Insert Chart, it automatically takes the data and makes a chart for me. Now, this is cool, but I like a pie chart even better. Now you're looking at this data and you're thinking, I would think Pepsi more of a blue color can and Coke is that red color can. Well, we can customize that. If I click right on that wedge, I can go ahead and change that color and make that what I want it to be. And now I have this chart here that I can go along and people can see how the data has been pulled in. I could do that with any of these things here. Let me go ahead and format this up here so I could show you the wrapping function. Hard to see what all that is. Let's go ahead and put that in the middle and wrap it out. Now I can see all of my text at the same time. Here's where some major power comes in, and this is something of an add-on called Autocrat. What I did is I created a Google Doc, and I'm going to show you this Google Doc here. A very simple Google Doc, but you're going to notice some funny text in this Google Doc. Notice it says Dear, and it has these arrows, and then it says first name, and then the arrows again. And thanks for putting this Google form on timestamp. Those are the column headings that I had from this data here. Timestamp, first name, and notice I have them exactly the way they are. Capital letters, space, whatever it shows on here. And I have this in a sheet. What I can do is use something called Autocrat in my Google Sheet, and it's automatically going to make a customized Google Doc for each one of these entries here. Let me show you. Very magical. I'm just going to get rid of some of this other data here just so it doesn't interfere on that. And I'm going to go into my add-ons, Autocrat, launch. And it takes a moment. The more data you have, this takes a little bit longer. And I'm going to start a new job. I'm just going to call this NLS data for my job. And it says, choose my template. And my template is this Google Doc. So I'm going to go ahead from Drive. And it's going to be in the order of the last one that you opened, most likely. So that NLS Google Sheet should be like right up here. But even if it isn't, I can search for it. Oh, right here it is, NLS. Yep, that's the one I want to use. Next. It automatically knows that I'm taking the form responses, that there is a header row. The data starts in row number 2. You can confirm that by looking right here. And it knows that I wanted first name to first name. So it's automatically going to pull that data in. I'm going to say that this is going to be first name. Whoops, we want first name. And I'm just going to put NLS. And I'm actually going to make these a PDF, and I'm going to put this in a single output, just because I want to have one big PDF of all these done, because I could just print them out all at one time. Add page breaks between data rows. Yes, that means each one's going to get a new page. Next. I don't have to choose a folder because it's just going to go in my Drive. I can do that later, no big worries. I don't ever do anything here because it's optional. I don't ever do anything here because it's optional. I could have it send emails for me to each person. So if I collected an email address, this would automatically send an email to each person with their individualized document that I create. Right now, I'm not going to do that. You can have this to choose when it would run. So if you had this on form trigger, that means that every time somebody can put new data in, it would automatically run this job for you. So if you ever fill out a form and then all of a sudden, like a minute later, you get an email with something in there with your personalized results, that's how this is done. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and choose Save. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this job. And to run the job, all I need to do is press the play button. Notice some extra columns just automatically got added on. And it's going to start to put a whole bunch of gobbly text in there. You don't have to worry about that. Because what we're going to be able to do here is I'm going to be able to take this data and look at that PDF. Remember how I said it's going to be one right after the other? Look, it put the first name in, timestamp. I agree with you. My favorite soda is also Coke, because that's what Andy chose. And you chose summer as your favorite season, so it put that in there. And we have one document right after the other with all of their personalized data in there. Isn't Autocrat amazing? Now, I know I went over it pretty quickly, but it is a very amazing, highly powerful tool that you can automate. So not only are you using Sheets to have your data, you can use forms to gather data, you can do so much stuff with your data, and then you can choose to use it to send data out to people. Amazing. One more thing I want to show you before we are headed out of time, because we're just about getting there, is some sorting. I want to go into this document that I had here, and I'm going to sort this data. Oops. And I want to choose it. I want to sort the data by Coke and Pepsi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this corner here, and I call this the magic square, because what this will do is it will highlight every row and every column all at the same time. Boom. That's a select all. I'm going to go into data, sort range, and it has a header row. And I want to say that I want to sort this data by the favorite season. Sort. Look at that. We have all our falls together, all our springs together, all our summers. If I'm like, oh no, I want it to go back the way it was, just undo, and you're right back to the way it was. Two last things. Conditional formatting. This is so cool. I'm going to highlight this column, and I'm going to go into the Format menu and choose Conditional Formatting. So that means I can say that if the cell contains the number 5, I want it to color red. Look what it did there. What a powerful way for you to be able to see data right away of people that chose that this scale from 1 to 5 was their favorite. And you can do so many things on conditional formatting. Just makes your data, watching your data, so powerful. You can share this out here with collaborators. It can be people that can view only, or they can be editors. You can do that. One other way of doing it is publishing it to the web. And I kind of like to do that by getting a link. Then when you do that link, you're going to get something that looks like this. And no one can click on this data and screw it up and do anything. They just can see it. And it's kind of like a web link without having to see all the googly stuff on top of it. So that's a really cool thing there. Last thing is printing. People always ask about printing. Printing, you can print this. Of course you can. Print. I like to make sure that I'm choosing fit to page. And you can choose this to portrait, however you want to. That way you get all your data on one page, and then you can go ahead and choose your custom breaks. You can add headers and footers. So if you want page numbers on there, the names of the sheet, the name of the file, all that kind of stuff. So of course you can print as well. To a regular printer or just print PDF. Now I know that this was a lot of stuff, but I'm going to tell you what. You just get into it a little bit at a time, and then of course you can always add more and learn more. What I want to make sure that you know is you're going to look for an email wrap-up that's going to have this recording in here so you can watch it again. There's going to be a link to a 3-question survey. I wonder how she did that. Google Forms? Yes, you're right. And if you do that, I really do take that into consideration, and it helps me make my sessions better. This was super fast. But if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask me. You can reply back to any of the emails or get a hold of me via my website. Again, you're going to get to this links to the website of this Noon Learning series. I included on the Noon Learning series this awesome link to this great PDF here that's got a wonderful cheat sheet. And if you see anything in blue in here, it'll automatically take you to a link and it shows you how to do it. So this is an amazing cheat sheet from Custom Guide here to show you how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording right now, but I'm going to stay on in the chat window. So if anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to put it in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to everyone that is watching the recording. Thanks much.